Brantley Foster is a young, ambitious graduate with a finance degree who has just completed his studies at the University of Kansas. He decides to leave his hometown and go to New York City, a metropolis that attracts millions of young people with its opportunities and promises of success. Brantley is sure that his education and career aspirations will help him quickly find a job in the financial sector and become successful. He dreams of a large company, a prestigious position, and a career that will help him achieve financial independence and recognition. New York City, however, does not greet him the way he expected. On his first day, Brantley arrives at the company with which he had a pre-arranged employment contract. However, he is soon informed that this company has been absorbed by a larger competitor and his job assignment is cancelled. He has no job and is left destitute. Brantley does not give up and decides to look for a new job, but encounters a number of problems. In his attempt to get a job, Brantley is faced with the fact that the world of finance is not as easy to break into as he thought. He sends resumes to dozens of companies but is rejected everywhere. He goes for interviews but is either deemed too inexperienced or his qualifications turn out to be too high for the job offered. Soon his finances begin to dwindle and he realizes that he needs much more than desire and a diploma to survive in New York City. He decides to accept the first offer he manages to get, a job as a clerk in the mailroom of a large Penrose corporation. This job is far from his ambitious aspirations, but it allows him to pay his rent and food. Brantley decides not to give up and finds a way to use his position to advance. The process of adjusting to Penrose is not as easy as he expected. He spends his days amidst bubbling paper correspondence and reports that seem boring and pointless to him. But working in such a department, Brantley begins to notice many of the company's internal problems. One day, while passing by one of the offices on the floor, he discovers that the position of one of the managers has been left vacant. The former owner of that office had been fired, and his position was never filled. This gives Brantley an idea. He decides to exploit this situation and impersonate Carlton Whitfield, a fictional middle manager. He changes into a business suit, changes his demeanor, and decides to lead a double life. He works as a clerk during the day and takes over an empty office space in the afternoon, impersonating someone in a high position. Brantley's new life is filled with stress because he has to constantly maintain the illusion that he is really who his colleagues think he is. However, his ambition and ability to see opportunities begin to pay off. Soon, Brantley begins to make suggestions for improving the company. He notices that many processes at Penrose are far from ideal and suggests ways to optimize them. His ideas turn out to be so logical and thoughtful that he begins to gain recognition among the employees. He becomes a kind of star within the company without revealing his real identity. His career progression continues to grow, and soon Brantley becomes an important figure in the company, despite the fact that no one knows his real position. Meanwhile, Brantley meets Christy Wills, a young female employee in the finance department. She too has recently taken a job with the company, and a strong relationship develops between them. Brantley continues to hide his true identity, remaining to her as Carlton Whitfield, a middle manager, without mentioning his real position. Their relationship becomes increasingly close, and a romantic attraction develops between them. At the same time, Brantley attracts the attention of Vera Penrose, wife of company president Howard Prescott. Vera, fascinated by Brantley, invites him to her home after one of the corporate events. An affair develops between them, which complicates Brantley's position, as Vera is the spouse of a powerful man who runs the company. All this turns into a complex tangle of intrigue, as no one guesses who is really hiding under the mask of a successful manager. At the same time, Howard Prescott, having learned that Brantley is taking advantage of Vera's attention, decides to interfere in his life. He begins to notice that Brantley behaves strangely and suspects him of leaking information about the future takeover of the company by a larger competitor, Donald Davenport. Consequently, he assigns Christy to follow Brantley to find out who he really is and what his intentions are. Howard begins to run his own game, suspecting that Brantley may be a spy. Brantley soon discovers that the Penrose company is on the verge of a takeover. Donald Davenport prepares to buy the controlling interest, which will lead to the loss of the company's independence. Howard Prescott prepares the company for sale by cutting staff and optimizing costs, but his actions threaten the stability of the firm. Brantley decides to act to save the company from a takeover. He offers Christy a strategy that may help the company survive. Instead of giving up, Brantley decides to buy up the company's stock and stabilize the company internally. This idea finds support from investors, and Brantley is given the opportunity to continue the fight to save the company. Brantley's exposure comes unexpectedly during one of the meetings at the Prescott House, where Howard, Vera, Christie, and Brantley find themselves at the same time. His true identity is revealed. Everyone is shocked, and Brantley is forced to admit that he is not Carlton Whitfield, but merely a clerk in the mailroom. Howard demands Brantley's immediate dismissal, and Christie feels cheated and betrayed. However, the situation changes. Vera, having learned about everything, files for divorce from Howard, exposing his infidelity and financial fraud. She decides to support Brantley and Christie, and together they start buying up shares in the company to prevent it from being taken over. Vera discloses her husband's misconduct, and the board of directors decides to remove Howard as president of the company. Brantley becomes the new head of the corporation. After Brantley becomes president of the company, he begins to act honestly and openly. Christie returns to the company, and together they make new plans to grow the business. Brantley realizes that his goal is not just to succeed for profit, but to improve the lives of the company's employees. He is now willing to do things that will not only be good for the business, but also for the people who work in it. This story shows how believing in your own strength and striving for success can help you overcome any obstacle. Brantley was able to not only change his destiny, but also save his company, proving that determination and sincerity can lead to great success. His story is a lesson in the importance of believing in oneself and fighting for one's goals despite all difficulties.